Carol.
Yes.
Hi.
Hi.
I heard you were a provost. What's a provost?
A provost is an ancient title for an academic officer, so I'm also the vice president of academic affairs at a college.
Oh, that's very interesting. But what's a provost?
A provost is a VPAA.
Ah, I knew that.
And you're provost of a distinguished institution? Yes?
Yes, I believe so. A small but distinguished institution.
Ooh.
So why
How
do
come
we
I've never heard of it?
Well, it's SUNY Geneseo, so we're part of a very large institution, the State University of New York, but we're a small college, a very selective college in upstate New York.
So why would you need to go to college now that we have smartphones or the access to all the information in the world?
Yeah,
More
yeah.
access than we've ever had, in fact.
Yeah, good point.
And do you have a smartphone?
No, I don't have thumbs.
Well, it's a really good question. And, you know, there's a difference between information or knowledge and understanding or education. So education is a way of deepening knowledge, of making it contextual, and giving you new ways to use it and ways to continue learning.
Wow, good answer, huh?
Sounds like the way university was meant to be, but not how it is now.
Well, America is fortunate to have a great diversity of institutions, yes? So there are different kinds of education. Some education is very applied, and some education is more contextual and theoretical. So different kinds of education might be good for different purposes and at different times in your life.
So what is Geneseo known for? What's one of their popular majors?
Well, Geneseo is a public liberal arts college, so we have very broad majors. We're very strong in sciences, in physics. We have a particle accelerator, for instance. So there's the opportunity to do a lot of research as an undergraduate. We have very strong humanities programs also. So we try to give a lot of breadth in education.
So if I wanted to be focused in journalism, how often would I go to class each week?
Yeah.
Well, classes usually run 3 to 4 hours a week, yeah? 14 weeks in a semester.
So I would get a degree after that?
Well, you do lots of other things as well. So one of the marks of a liberal arts education is breadth. So you may be majoring in our case it would be communication, not journalism per se. So you'd get a lot of other kinds of courses as well. So you'd study philosophy, you'd study history, you'd study the sciences. But that makes you a much better journalist in the long run, yes?
Yeah. But if I'm going to class for 3 hours a week for maybe, 12 or so weeks, and I walk out with maybe 50 hours of education, if I got that on the job, if I was a journalist, I would end up more educated, right? Because I'm actually doing it. And then I wouldn't have the debt of college, correct?
True. You also wouldn't have the background of college. So, college is, we argue a lot about whether college is a private or a public good. Yeah? It's a private good because it helps you find a path to the career you want to follow, and you may earn, more money down the road than you would have if you hadn't gone to college. But it's also a public good because it helps you to learn to think for yourself, to inquire in ways that you might not automatically have thought to inquire.
Do you really think that students these days are doing that?
Well, I do. Yes, I do. But as I said, there are lots of different kinds of education. So you can choose a course that is more applied, and you might not get all of those other things. When you're in a residential liberal arts college, you're in an entire ecosystem where everybody's working in the same direction, well, the same theoretical direction, yeah? So you're encouraged, you're helped to become more adept at that kind of inquiry.
Isn't it just babysitting?
Well,
They actually do go to class in pajamas now, right?
Yes, they do, but they're very stylish pajamas usually, so it's okay. Yeah, there's, in the traditional liberal arts residential college where students are mostly the traditional age, whatever that means, 18 to 22, there's a lot of growth and civic life kind of learning that goes on outside the classroom, yeah? So sometimes it may feel like babysitting, but it's really much more than that. It's leadership, it's initiative, it's growing confidence. It's all the things that you have really in a strong home environment, yes, except you have more autonomy, and it's with a bunch of people you don't know.
But if you're going to go to school in pajamas, why wouldn't you just stay at home and maybe sign into a class so you could sit at home and chew your bone and learn?
Yeah.
Would you like that?
Oh,
Would you
yeah.
like that? Well, you know, digital education is really offers so many new kinds of paths for us now, and it's an open question what college is going to look like in 20 years or 30 years or maybe 10 years for that matter. So it may be much more a combination of digital learning, as I like to call it, and classroom learning or learning in a laboratory or in some other organized context.
Well, sounds really busy.
It is. It
Yeah,
is.
I didn't do so well. I flunked out of obedience school. Yeah, I kept chasing parked cars.
That's a good point, because we need mechanics in the world, right? They don't need to go and get a master's degree, do they?
Probably not, although cars are getting pretty complicated these days.
What would you learn about cars in a university?
Well, not at our university, at many of the community colleges, yes. You'd learn the principles of mechanics, you'd learn how to build some mechanical things at our college, but you wouldn't learn the specifics of car mechanics, right? But you could then learn them pretty easily.
So if you go to like a trade school, or you go to maybe a community college or Geneseo, it doesn't matter much to you where you go, it's just that you get an education whether you use it or not?
Well, I have a really strong belief in education. It's a real strong principle for me that education is a good thing, that it helps build human capacity, and that if we build human capacity, the world's going to be a better place. Capacity for thought, capacity for listening to others, capacity for problem solving. And that can start anywhere. We get lots of transfers from community colleges who maybe have started in a more applied direction or maybe didn't know which direction they wanted to go to, right? And then they come to us to finish a major in something that they got interested in earlier.
Rook, you've got multiple degrees, right?
Yes,
Did you pay for all of them yourself?
I did. But that was then. The economics of college is broke now. Carol, justify your existence.
Yeah.
I can do that. Well, the cost of college has always been there. It's been borne by different parties at different times. Currently, because of the lack of state support or the drop in state support or in public support, more of the burden is falling on students and their families.
So why should they go?
Well, one can ask. I believe there's still a great benefit, but you know, you're going to run up to a point at some stage where that won't be true. So we have to contain costs, which we work very hard to do. Digital learning is one way that might be of some help. I don't think it's going to solve all the problem, but it certainly is a contributing factor. And
Is
I
that
think,
cheaper?
depends on how you do it. There are some things you can learn digitally at a self-pace that might be cheaper. I think the real education, the contextual education, the learning for wisdom is probably not cheaper no matter how you do it. It involves a community, it involves equipment, it involves resources. So some cost is going to stay. The question is, where do you balance that? Is it a public cost or a private cost?
Why not have a corporate sponsored school, a
Yeah.
university?
Well, there are some.
Are they?
And some corporations actually are doing their own education if they're training for a particular purpose. The real question, I think, for society is how does education get carried forward? We have certain kinds of institutions now. Are those the best kinds of institutions? Should they be collaborative? Should corporations and states and institutions work together more intentionally? I don't know the answer to that, but I think it's a good question.
But there are students who need an answer now.
Yes, there are. And there are many answers, many different answers for students now. There are new paths for gaining credits towards the degree, for instance, competency-based education, credit for prior experience. You can work through a community college into a four-year college. So there are lots of choices, not just one choice.
Yeah, but not everyone has $40,000 to spend on school.
That's true.
Yes, it is. Well, and not all schools cost $40,000
Yeah,
either.
some of them cost more.
And even some that cost $60,000, you would end up paying, depending on where you're coming from and what kinds of resources you have. You'll end up paying a lot less. So the sticker price is certainly not always the price that you pay.
It's a lot of paintings for you to do.
Better get to work, excuse me. I'm back. Carol, I have one more question.
All right.
Is it worth it? Do we produce too many college graduates or not enough?
Good question. Education is worth it, and I think we produce probably a good amount. We can always have more college graduates, but in a way that's the wrong metric, right? It's really education we have to mark, and how do we see if we have an educated populace?
So is Bill Gates the worst role model for education?
Probably not the worst, but I don't know the answer really to that question. If you have a lot of money and you have a strong opinion about how education should be formed, then you have some clout.
Well, this has really been fascinating, but I do have one last question.
Yes.
So, what's a provost?
Oh, fierce.
What? Huh? What? Oh yeah.